It is good to be back. That gold is looking good. Sheesh. Hey, what's up, y'all? Gannon here, back at again with another one of my Star Trek reviews. I haven't been on the channel since we finished reviewing Star Trek Picard and its final season with season 3. Just so happy to be back on the channel to review Star Trek and its new flagship show. I just assumed since Discovery is coming to a close with its 5th and final season that at this point they're just pumping all of their money, goods, and their resources into either developing new Trek projects or to develop Strange New Worlds, because Strange New Worlds really was the show that fans kind of fantasized and came up with after seeing Captain Pike in season 2 of Discovery. That we had season 1, they delivered on it, and it brought so many cool things to Star Trek again. Spock's stepbrother Sybok is back, the Gorn are back. People really did enjoy season 1 of Strange New Worlds. It had its own handful of canon mistakes, aspects of it that don't entirely respect previous elements of the TOS, but if we're gonna be honest, the TOS doesn't even really respect its own canon. I don't think anybody cares. I think we have learned truly at the end of the day that as long as you guys give us decent Star Trek that shows original themes, just presents a decent science fiction story in the span of 50 minutes, that people are going to be happy. Couple that along with a really good cast and just making the sets and overall look of the show a lot more appealing and less flashy. We're just going in the right Trek direction here. Season 1, hopefully you guys remember a lot of crazy happened with the chief engineer Hemmer dying. Also, we have First Officer Una-Chin Riley getting arrested by Starfleet for being a mutant freak. Some returning friendly faces. We finally have real Klingons back in Star Trek, and we meet our new chief engineer for the first time, and I definitely have a lot of things to share about her. With all that being said, this is not a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the episode, be sure to go watch it, and then come back and please join in on the discussion. Let's get right into it. Season 2, Episode 1, called The Broken Circle. This episode starts off with Captain Pike on a Skype call with Una-Chin Riley talking about the upcoming trial and how they're trying to get a specific lawyer. Foreshadowing to events to come, I truly believe that they are trying to cook up another great trial episode of Star Trek. Star Trek is famous for its handful of courtroom episodes that turn out to be very, very scandalous, entertaining, and oftentimes just downright inspirational. We have Court Martial, we also have, of course, everybody knows Measure of a Man, and then we have that one that I don't really remember the name of off the top of my head, but it's that one where Worf ended up accidentally almost shooting a civilian ship, but it was just kind of a fake decoy set up by the Klingon Empire to get a war started. Speaking of that, that is the exact plot line of this episode. At the end of the last, they kind of sent Lon off to go find this little girl's parents, and I just thought that this was kind of weird. I was very much against Hemmer's death. I missed the dude. I thought having a blind actor play a disabled, endangered alien species, I thought that was amazing. I thought we were going to get many more seasons to come with Hemmer, but then they abruptly killed him, and I don't think anybody was really happy with it. I don't think anybody thought, hey, that's a really good death that adds stuff to the series, but it's whatever. And then on top of that, they have decided to now replace Hemmer with the new engineering lady. Didn't even take the time to remember her name, and you guys are going to be pissed off with that, but it's just because her accent was so outrageously ridiculous. She sounds like some kind of crazy Harry Potter professor. It was half got me thinking, like, I don't know if I like this or not, and then the other half of me was thinking, this is the most hilarious thing ever. She was in Spock's face, you're going to steal the ship. Like, she sounds like Albert Einstein, almost German or something. The thing that is keeping me intrigued about her character, and the thing that's keeping me from hopping on this hate train of being like, they really murdered a disabled, endangered alien and replaced it with a white woman, like one of the most least endangered, most privileged people on this earth, white women. You're really going to replace Hemmer with a white woman? Are you kidding me? She's actually this really dope, awesome race. She's this thing called a lanthanite, and on top of lanthanites just kind of being charming, they're very old aliens who she implied and said in this episode can live almost forever, so they're like lobsters. But they said that these aliens had actually been living on Earth prior to First Contact Day, prior to them having any contact with alien life. They were just living amongst humans, which is really cool, but it's also an excuse for them to not give her any makeup or anything and just kind of make her look humanoid. I'm interested to see if her species is one that utilizes disguise or if they actually just look like humans. Isn't that kind of lame how there would be an alien race out there close to the Sol system that's just a complete carbon copy of humans on the outside, but other than that, they just have an accent? Like, she better have some cool abilities or something, right? Because she's competing with the cool, disabled, blind, telepathic alien from last season, and she's got a lot to live up to, let me tell you. Going on a tangent, this episode is about them going and stealing the Enterprise because, of course, during this time in the time period, the Enterprise is of one of 12 Constitution-class ships in a fleet. There is nobody there to, like, stop the Enterprise being stolen once it's stolen. They get a message from Lon Noonien Singh. They had this little plot device written in that she went off with this girl to find her parents. I thought it was kind of lame. I thought that it was really convenient, and to be honest, there wasn't really a whole lot done with it other than they used it as a very convenient device for them to show up on this Klingon planet later. Previously in Star Trek, there was a lot of cool things that happened between seasons. I would like to think the most prominent, like, season switch-up would probably be the one where Captain Sisko was promoted to captain, he lost his hair and then grew a beard, or it would be the one season 2 of TNG where Dr. Pulaski came in, Wesley Crusher came in, and he was significantly older. Wesley Crusher is probably the best example of this, but they really utilized the mid-season gap of Star Trek really well, and I honestly don't know if this mid-season gap was really that well thought of, is what I'm trying to get at here. Lon has been here, not working for Starfleet, just kind of doing her own undercover ops thing. They take the time now to introduce the Klingons. They've returned to their more traditional look. I actually really love how the Klingons look. Modern twist on the Klingons. They all look a little bit different, have varied foreheads, and the Klingon females really reminded me of the old Klingon woman, G, that was trying to, you know, like, save Picard from those Klingons in the street. Really reminded me of her. So I think they're spot on with the Klingons, their behavior. It's really, really good. Why did they think it was a good idea to have this scene of Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga on this ship? Lon's on this planet, and she discovers that Klingon arms dealers are trying to come up with a plan to resume the Klingon War and make money. They want to sell guns. So they're building a Starfleet ship on this planet. Another thing that's kind of to me is that the starship turned out to be Crossfield class, or at least that's what the helmsman guessed the classification of the ship to be. And while I'm here and I'm talking about ship classifications, there was a Saladin class ship at the starbase, and I thought that that was pretty cool to see. The single nacelle on the bottom, I'm pretty sure that's a Saladin class ship. Why is a Crossfield class ship here? I thought that the Crossfield was the super secret Discovery classification of ship. The only other Crossfield class ever mentioned was Discovery's sister ship that was totally, like, destroyed. Diminishes, in my opinion, the secret black opsness blasted into the future bit of the Crossfield class. I didn't really like seeing it pop up in this episode, and I felt like it had very little reason to. They're probably going to have to write in lore now that the Crossfield class was just used commonly during the Klingon War of Discovery. Why are Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel, like, using war stims, just popping down these drugs and going insanely crazy? It ups their combat capability to stupid levels. Nurse Chapel is a badass, and I really like how they've had her going around the ship, chloroforming people with her hypo spray. Where in the writer's room did they think it was a good idea for these two doctor characters, these two doctors with average builds and physiques? I understand that Mbenga has, like, previous war experience and he's got Vietnam flashbacks from the Klingon War. Is he really this much of a badass? I think I counted. These two almost got, like, a dozen Klingons by themselves with their bare hands. In lore, the Klingons have like multiple hearts. They're way sturdier and taller than a human. They're just a warrior race. Do you know how hard it is to take down just like a grown man with your fists? Even if you are like trained, this shit is hard. It takes a lot of energy. It's the most unbelievable, unnecessary, way too violent. That was so Michael Bay. I really did not like that scene. Why did they need to have Mbenga in Nurse Chapel do something so drastic? So just unnecessarily unbelievable. That was the part of the episode that really was like, I don't know how I could just sit here and explain that this is good content. It's really not. They should have replaced that with them kind of using hyposprays or cleverly just outsmarting the Klingons and seeing a lot more of that Klingon culture that they just sprinkled in there with, you know, them having a drinking game and them drinking blood wine at the end. And those are beautiful scenes, but you can't justify Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga stimming up like that and having a Michael Bay brawl. Like, these brawls are getting a little bit ridiculous. Captain Picard showed us that you should really be able to use your words more often than not and not hands. But the violence in New Star Trek is just getting a little bit off the rails. And on top of that, I finished this episode, which was extremely violent. There was warmongering, there was explosions, and at the end, they decided to give a tribute to Nichelle Nichols, and I just thought that that was so inappropriate and distasteful for just the vibe of the episode. Does that make sense? Did you guys watch that episode and really think, okay, oncoming Gorn War, hella violent, and Mbenga and Nurse Chapel just beat up 12 people to death with their bare hands after using war stims? By the way, Nichelle Nichols, rest in peace, we love you, in loving memory. No, come on, guys. Why don't you guys wait for there to be a way more loving, tasteful, classic Star Trek episode with a meaning, a message, and just something a little bit more heartwarming to dedicate to Nichelle? I don't think that Nichelle would honestly want this episode of all things dedicated to her. Spock was great. I loved Spock. I actually thought it was a little bit interesting that Captain Pike wasn't here for the majority of the first episode of the season, but I guess it just goes to show that we need to see that the Enterprise crew members can do things on their own, like steal the Enterprise, fight Klingon, and just essentially get the job done. I really love Admiral April. He is a really good character. I love the actor who is playing him. I love how he is not totally perfect, and he is an admiral at the end of the day. He is now the dude at Starfleet Command who sits in a desk and kind of evaluates the risk necessity, even though he's not the one necessarily sitting in the chair. So when he was at first like, no, you're not going to that planet, that is not a good idea, that's against the rules. But because Spock and the Enterprise crew are the main characters, they actually go there, thwart a huge Klingon plan, and they save the day, save their friend. Spock was really good at the end of the episode. I loved him drinking with the Klingons. Klingon interaction at this point in the time period is hilarious because humans will meet the Klingons and they'll always try to beef and be sneaky. A good example of the relationship between Klingons and humans at this point, surprisingly, is Trouble with Tribbles. The Klingons coming and actually seeking shore leave on the station in that episode just goes to show you how the Klingons are not at war. They can be cordial, they can have little get-togethers, and they can definitely talk about the war without actually murdering each other. The scene where Admiral April is also letting Spock off the hook is amazing, and another reason why I like Admiral April is because he is a great captain of the Enterprise. This dude, in last season we learned he had a maneuver named after him. Captain Pike really seems to respect him, even though he had to be that authority figure at the start of the episode to tell Spock no. It was really cool at the end seeing him just kind of let him off the hook and be very friendly and likable, and you could definitely envision that guy holding the captain's chair at one point. With all that being said, how do I feel about the episode? This episode was not the best opener possible by any means, and I honestly think it had a couple flaws to it. That scene with Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga is just a little bit unbelievable. It's a little bit corny, and as much as Mbenga as a really great actor, I love him, and when he's just kind of talking to people, giving advice and doing doctoring, he really shines. At the same time, there's moments like this, and then also the conclusion with his daughter, where they just seem to drop the ball really badly with this dude. For all those reasons, I think I'm going to give this episode a 6 to 6.5 out of 10, because they did a lot of good things for Star Trek, especially just the return of classic Klingons, but giving them a proper perfect modern look and behavior. Thank you so much for watching today's review. If you've seen any of my other reviews, or if you're just tuning in to this one for the first time and this is your first one, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for watching and taking your time out of your day to listen to me talk about the new Star Trek episode. I'd really appreciate it if you would hit that big red button. If you enjoyed the video, please slap a like on it. If you have anything that you'd like to share with me about the upcoming episode and about Una-Chin Riley's trial, leave it down below. If you just have any thoughts in general, comments are my favorite thing about the platform. The more you leave, the happier it makes me. And with all that being said, thanks again for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.